Hello. This is Doubtfire. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, it is James Lott Jr. is the farmer, and Jack Farmer is the DJ. I'm sorry, I'm coming out of this I had my first shot of the vaccine. I'm coming out of the haze. I was very, very tired this last 3 days. I'm waking up and coming back, and I'm a little loopy. But we're here. We're going to talk music. I can talk music in my sleep, which I think I probably did while I was asleep. We love music. Hello,
Are you
Jack
sure
Farmer.
you're awake now?
I think I'm awake. I'm not sure. It could be an alternate universe. I could be still asleep doing this. I have no idea at this point. It's all just, it could be my reality, may not be your reality, may not be their reality. I don't know. Some inception shit like that.
I get it. Yeah. And it might be. Why not?
He's following along. You guys, we're on my YouTube channel, JLJ Media. Please go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thank you. Okay. We're talking the 2010s. Okay, so this is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I don't know about for you, but for me,
yeah,
most decades, no matter what the music is, once you hear the first couple of bars and notes, you can tell what decade it is.
Yeah.
The 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. The 2000s where it starts to get a little like not as recognizable. Well, the 2010s especially were very varied. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was going to say, doing my prep for this episode, because believe it or not, we do prep, James. We look into this stuff. It was fascinating to me just how different 2010 was from 2019 or 2011 from 2020, depending on how we break it down. But I mean, completely different vibes and styles, and things that would have worked in the early 2010s would not have worked later, and vice versa. It was a very strange time, and I think it's kind of reflective of, here in the States anyways, maybe just the mindset of the world and how we came into the decade with a certain mindset, and I think a feeling of positivity based on the music. If you look at the music from the early 2010s, all very positive, very bouncy, very upbeat, very party. And second half of the decade, a lot less so, a lot more kind of depressing, a lot more mellow, a lot more down. And so without trying to make any, I guess, big political statements or things like that, it does feel like in the music, you can feel the vibe of America change, I think. And that's just I feel like I said a million things just now, but yeah, it's a very wide range of stuff from this decade.
No, actually, you were very articulate. You actually said it made sense, and I'm gonna piggyback off of that. I think that most music is made out of the time, so I think you're onto something. It's just that in every decade has that on some level. I mean, in the 80s, I remember a lot of the songs. We were in the Cold War. It was a Reagan era in America. We were in the Reagan era. A lot of songs were about breaking free from that, breaking from oppression, but they were upbeat pop songs. I mean, Relax, Don't Do It, to Tribes, from Frank Goes to Hollywood, to a lot of there's a song called 19 by Paul Hadcast. So there's a lot of songs that came out of that time period. The 70s, disco happened because they were tired of the war and Vietnam War in the late 60s and all that. So they kind of morphed into this kind of dancey, fun thing. And the 90s were fun. 90s, we had technology happen. A lot of technology happened in the 90s. The Walkman morphed into the Discman, and 6 CD disc changers and things like that we had in our cars. And so a lot of music, of course, is a lot of music became just bouncy and just kind of like free-spirited, and grunge was born out of the whole excess of rock, kind of, and so I think the time period does dictate the kind of songs. So I want to do this little sampling. So it's funny we're on the same page, Jack Farmer. We've done enough of these shows that gets on the same page. I said we started the decade in 2010 with songs like, and people like, Justin Bieber's Baby, Kesha, Katy Perry's California Girls and et al., Pitbull, Eminem was still big. With My Hair by Willow Smith,
Oh
and
man,
like a
that song
G6
stuck in my head. Or just saying the name of it
See,
stuck.
they got my hair.
I whip my hair
so
back
that's how
and
we
forth.
started. My hair back and forth. And then the end of the decade, we ended with things like I went 2019. America by Childish Gambino, Billie Eilish, Taylor Swift with her You Need to Calm Down, Lizzo self-empowerment songs, Old Town Road by Lil Nas X, and BTS and Shawn Mendes. So you're right, we kind of did change from just those 9 years. I mean, and many of those artists like Katy Perry and like a Lady Gaga, or like they all started in the 2010s or late 2000s, and they continued, you know. But we don't hear from Pitbull as much anymore. We don't hear even Katy Perry changed some of her songs over the years. Lady Gaga got serious over the years. Taylor Swift got serious over the years. So you're right. So Jack, I actually completely agree with you completely doing my research also. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest songs the first half of the decade was literally called "Happy." But if that song came out, maybe at the beginning of 2020, wouldn't have done very well. Wouldn't have been very popular if it came out, say, March of 2020. It probably wouldn't have popped off quite the way it did back in 2014, I want to say. But it's interesting. I think we are, you mentioned the 70s, and I love that you mentioned it. I feel like as we're getting out of this quarantine and lockdown and all that stuff, we're going that way, and we're starting to see us now bounce back and get into the more fun music. Again, I talk about Levitating by Dua Lipa. It feels disco-y. Ava Marie has a new song as well, like Head in the Heart, I think, sounds kind of dancey. But I want to use one person who totally blew up and broke out in the mid 2010s, and that's Cardi B. You look at her first song, Bodak Yellow, very kind of dark sounding, very like not fun. I mean, it was a fun party song just because she's Cardi B, but it wasn't, you wouldn't think of it as like a party song on its own in a vacuum. But now she's coming out with songs like It's Up and It's Up and It's Up and It's Up. It kind of more dancey and fun. And so I think to your disco analogy, I feel like we're going to head in that direction with just fun, crazy party stuff again. At least I hope. As a DJ, those are always more fun to play. But yeah.
I think they are too. And what's funny is, in the 2010s, EDM was born. EDM came out because in the beginning of the decade, we had DJ God Is Falling in Love Again, and started the whole resurgence of the DJ as an artist. Calvin Harris is one, obviously, Chainsmokers. I mean, there were a lot of groups that got huge, and you know their names. Marshmello.
David Guetta,
Marshmello. What's
Zed.
his name? Another guy, the S name.
Which one? Mark Ronson?
Well, him too. Skrillex.
Oh yeah.
They all became big critically and commercially. These are artists who were getting together and having huge hits on the pop charts, huge hits worldwide. And EDM became this thing that was, I guess, back to the disco analogy, started happening. The techno analogy that started happening again, and was becoming. It's completely this thing where, dance. People get tired of serious for a while, and then they want to go buck wild for a while. Then they go back to serious again. And then that's something that could happen. I don't know. Michael B thinks no, but who knows? I mean, we don't know. I mean, it completely can happen. We don't know the trends. Obviously, we're just going by the past, but the past really dictates. There are party songs come back, and also this decade we had a big, huge spike of bilingual songs.
Yes,
we had a huge spike in those kind of multilingual, bilingual songs that went out there and became really big hits on the pop charts. I mean, you were hearing like Luis Fonsi or Despacito, and now we got Bad Bunny and Maluma. They're all these huge, Rosalia. They're all huge now on the pop charts.
I was going to say, actually, do you think we owe Justin Bieber a little bit of a tip of the hat for bringing so much of that over to the U.S.? Because Despacito, I mean, I know it had been, there'd been Daddy Yankee had been around for a while and other artists, but it felt like Despacito was really what kicked down the door for especially Spanish-speaking music to become just mainstream and popular. Because ever since Despacito blew up, a lot of those songs have really just been welcome on the U.S. charts. And
Oh, sorry. Michael B says, 1 second, he thinks Happy, when Biden took office, Happy would have been a big hit. Possibly.
It's possible. I think it depends where you live, but what you know,
yes,
what kind of animal you vote for. But
yeah.
It is I guess, yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about, you know, Justin Bieber and how everyone gives Justin Bieber such a hard time, but he's been making music for a long time, and it always seems to do well. And like I said, I feel like once, because Despacito was out, it was its own song, no one cared. Then Justin Bieber got on it, like it or not, then it blew up. And then, yeah, ever since then, guys like Bad Bunny and everyone else have been able to, you know, J Balvin had a big career with Miente and all these other songs. It seemed like that opened the door for that entire genre of music, like I said, to be popular for people who don't speak Spanish.
So a person who obviously is of Latino descent and speaks Spanish, I can tell you for a fact, it's funny, every 10 years or so, a Spanish revolution will happen. The Latin explosion, of course, happened back in the 2000s, and it would begin in 2000s with Mark Anthony and Jennifer Lopez and Ricky Martin.
Living La Vida Loca. Yeah.
Which he did that Grammy performance, and that blew up everything. He had that World Cup song that was huge everywhere in the world. No one knew who Ricky Martin was besides Menudo as a kid. And then obviously that became big. I think I will agree with that. There was always music. Like I said, at the beginning of the decade, we had Pitbull was big, and Pitbull was performing with everybody. And he was doing bilingual stuff too. I Know You Want Me and all your songs, you doing bilingual stuff. But then it kind of went away again. And then, and then with Justin Bieber being added on, but they were always trying to get there. There were always these like minor crossovers that were happening. That Despacito song became huge. I mean, it was just like, it was just everywhere. Remember the 90s, Macarena was big. That was huge hit for the baseline boys.
That's true.
Those people. I mean, just, and like every 10 years or so, a big, and then you say, okay, it's going to happen. But I think this time it happened differently because the Spanish-speaking population and folks who just like the music are now sort of blending. The music is starting to blend together. Back in the day, people, if you don't realize this, there's a lot of restrictions on who could record with each other. Labels were much, there was like, 10, 15 labels that ran everything. So you gotta get permission, or we can't do that. And a lot of white executives would just say, no, you can't do that. You just keep it all separate. This is the Latin division, this is the Black folks division, this is this. Now there's much more freedom with digital, especially coming into play in the 2010s. I mean, because remember the 2000s was iTunes, the 2010s, it was Spotify, things like that. I think now it's just kind of like, you can throw Cardi B on a song with somebody or Beyonce doing a Spanish version. So like, nowadays, it's not even, no one flinches anymore. It's completely just now. But the audience also, the Latino population in America is now starting to fully embrace it, the bilingualness, because there actually are, I know this personally, there are many third, fourth generation Latinos who don't speak Spanish. So this is like their way to kind of get into it a little bit, or they just like it anyway. And it's kind of representation. It's just not, now everyone speaks Spanish who's Latino or Hispanic. They just don't for various reasons. But they're being recognized more as a marketing buying public. So I think that's again, that also, I'm sure you agree with, plays into what gets put out also, who they market to.
Yeah, and that's, I think, I mean, the brass tacks is obviously, I think, as the Latin population continues to grow, that doesn't hurt the fact that there are record labels out there trying to get more Spanish-speaking artists. But to your point about people working together too, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that artists have a little bit more control now, because now they can release stuff on their own. They don't necessarily need all these big record labels. And so the record labels are kind of at a spot where, if Beyonce was to say, hey, I want to work with Cardi B, if the record label said no, Beyonce would say, okay, well, I'm just going to make my own song and release it on my own. And they'd be out. So they kind of have to say, okay, do whatever you want. I mean, I know it's not quite that easy, but there's just,
that's a great,
no, it's just that leverage there now with being able to release things to anyone and everyone, anywhere. I mean, as you know, you can release an album on Spotify anytime you want. Drake did it just for funsies. It's a while back, you don't necessarily need those record labels anymore.
And as you know, a person who releases records, I have my own record label. I release my own music. I have new songs coming out this month. I do whatever I feel like it. To go to your point, Drake, of course, is a big artist in 2010s, but like Nicki Minaj, for example, she has like the most top 10s of like, like past Michael Jackson, past the Beatles, because half of her top 10s, half of her top 100, she's a featured artist.
Yes.
So I don't take away from that. I'm just saying that back in the day, it goes back to where you couldn't be. I mean, to get a duet together was a big deal. To get a collaboration together, nowadays everyone, half of Katy Perry's top 10s were collaborations. Juicy J, Kanye West, Snoop Dogg. They're all. I mean, it's like nowadays it's commonplace to have 5-6 people on a song and they're together. Yes. Half of Eminem's hits this decade were with Rihanna and other people. I mean, Love the Way You Lie, The Monster. They're all duets. I mean, before that wouldn't have happened. She had a song with Calvin Harris, and then Calvin Harris had a song with so-and-so. Like, they all kind of borrow from each other. At the beginning of the decade, same thing with Usher. Usher did songs with Neo and Calvin Harris, and they did a song with DJ so-and-so, and then he had his own stuff. So nowadays, to go with your point, it's just now you just want to get together, let's get together. And now folks just love it. And, even Beyonce being on a Savage song.
Yeah.
Which was last year. It was last year. So there's Savage with Megan Thee Stallion. They just won a Grammy for it. I mean, like, on the old days, that wouldn't have happened. There would have been a big, like, Beyonce on a song with Megan, but it worked out. It totally worked out, and they had a huge #1 hit off of it. And
back in like the 90s, if there was a song with 2 famous artists on it, it was a huge deal when that happened. Where now, again, it's kind of expected. You gotta, of course, like, most of your stuff is going to be things combined, and that's why I think you can't really compare. When people say, "Oh, this person did better than the Beatles" or whatever, it's a totally different ball game. So I don't know if you can really compare it, but yeah, Beyonce.
That's a whole other show. That's a whole other show. Because I have friends who seriously go through this whole. We have these talks all the time. Like, can you compare Beyonce to Michael Jackson or this? And I'm like, and some people say yes, you can, and others say, well, no, you had to physically buy albums. You had to go out and physically get the tape. Now it's just I'm like, it's still the same thing. You still have to make the. So anyway, that's all. It's a whole other show.
Yeah,
that one. I mean, that's.
I think the long and the short of it is yes and no, which is so unsatisfying to say. But like, I think in some ways you can, and in some ways you can't. I know.
Michael B's question is: do you guys think that record labels are still valid now? Do you think they screw themselves by not respecting their artists? I'll tell you, as a person myself, some record labels are doing fine work and they're great and whatever in terms of distribution. But nowadays, you can kind of do it yourself, because now I think it's not even about them screwing themselves. I think it's just now technology screwed them. I mean, it's just kind of. I remember when tapes first. That's how old I am. I remember when tapes first started, and they were fighting the whole VHS tape thing. Be going, well, now if you tape this, then they won't. I remember people just screaming over it. You just can't have home tapes. And oh my God, it's crazy. Remember when CDs started? There was all big thing about CDs. I mean, so I think we always have technology. And I remember when iTunes, I remember when Napster started and LimeWire, and I remember when everything started. Everybody was kind of like, oh my God. But literally, the through line is technology evolves. Mm-hmm. So the old way of doing things starts to go away a little bit. And I think now, I think it's more technology than respecting of artists. And then a lot of artists are deciding to be independent. Like a Chance the Rapper was famously, or Tigger. They're all famously independent artists putting out their music and having huge hits.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. I think it's the technology that really does it. Because at the end of the day, that's what's gotten most of the big companies that have gone out of business. Like Blockbuster didn't go down because they weren't taking care of their managers. It was because they didn't have a streaming service in place fast enough. At the end of the day, even today, I mean, if you are a record label, and I'm drawing a blank on any of the big ones, like Virgin, whatever,
Universal, Virgin,
Universal. If if you're one of the artists that is independent, and they say, "Cool, I'm going to pay you $10 million to make an album," a lot of people are going to take that. They'll still be able to get artists to take whatever those contracts are. There'll still be people who have that independent spirit, but I think they could still right the ship if you're a record label. I'm not rooting for them necessarily, but I think if you're a big business, when you have big business and big money, you can definitely still find a way to remain competitive. But it's that technology thing. It's that, to your point, how do you beat a Spotify? Because you can be like a Jay-Z and say, hey, all my stuff's going to be on Tidal. This is the only way you're going to hear it. But then no one's going to hear it. That's the problem. And if no one hears it, it doesn't matter how independent you are or how you're doing it. And so the question is, how do you subvert something like Spotify? How do you subvert something like Apple Music and all these other things that are already kind of controlling the market now? That's their situation.
And there were a lot of folks like the Beatles at first and stuff who were not on iTunes. They were not on, Their things weren't released. Prince wasn't on anything until he died. Then the estate started releasing stuff out there. There was a lot of stuff that wasn't out there available. You had to either exclusively get it from them or go to like Amoeba Records and buy actually the records. And I mean, it was very much, but technology is starting to force everyone. I see a lot of artists now who are releasing stuff, streaming. I mean, streaming is like, I remember when streaming first started and it was kind of like this embryonic kind of like, what is this? And are people going to pay for it? And they do. They have. It is. Hi, Tony Moore. In there, and it's very much so. It's streaming has changed everything, and TV, movies, music. It's at your fingertips. I mean, literally, my phone has like 10,000 songs on it. I mean, I can access whatever the F I want when it comes to music. It just made it easier. I don't have to carry it around. I don't have a CD tower full of godforsaken CDs.
Right. Yeah. It's, and I think that you can see the change in music as streaming grew as well, because the way you make, as the way you make money streaming is they have to listen to a certain length of your song. If they listen to 1 second and change it, then you don't get paid. And I think that's why so much music, especially for a while, started to sound very similar over the course of the 2010s, because I think so many artists were trying to get their songs to sort of blend into playlists so people wouldn't skip songs and that you would listen longer. Where if you are someone like a Pitbull, if I'm listening to music and I've got some chill groove music on, and then suddenly Mr. Worldwide, comes on and it's he's like, it's all loud and bouncy. If I'm doing homework, I'm like, whoa, this isn't good for me. I'm going to change it. Or if I'm cleaning around the house, if I'm cleaning around the house, I like music. So I like high energy music. So I'm probably like, yeah, let's do this. But you can see how if someone just has it on in the background, if they're like working or something, they go, oh, this is kind of jarring, skip. Where if you have that stuff that makes it turn into, if the music almost just becomes background noise, like a fan in the background, then all your songs are going to get played. And that's, I think, what a lot of people started doing to try to maximize that Spotify play count. Well, and you probably see that.
What also happened is Pandora was born. And Sirius Radio really got into the whole satellite for cars, especially if you rent a car. Most cars now in the 2010s had Sirius Radio on it. So you pick, they have Bruce Springsteen radio, they have Prince radio, they have soft hits or Disco 54, or those 3 channels they have. You know what they are. They're out there. I mean, they have them now. So you literally can break down and listen to exactly the kind you want to listen to. Hair Nation. That's one of my favorite channels.
Hair Nation.
Hair Nation is the bomb. You want to hear some excess mid to late 80s heavy metal, glam, whatever. That's all I listen to that. I'm like, it's just, but you can literally break it down that minute now in your life. You can make Spotify playlists. They also start to hear what you like. I mean, every service now tells you, oh, if you like this, you'll like this. I mean, like, even YouTube's getting into the music thing in the last couple of years. And they'll tell you, just a couple of videos. They'll say, and there's these videos over here that are similar to your video. They literally know what you're thinking, and they target and hone in. So now it's just much easier. So if you're an artist like myself, I'm going to put out a song as a dance song. Well, I don't know what to do. I know what kind of beats they like. And let's just put those beats together, throw a little twist in the lyrics maybe. And then you throw it out there and just blend it into everybody else. So it sounds very similar, but still have your own kind of integrity on some level. But that's the marketing part, because I know about that. I want to get paid. I want people to play my songs.
Right.
And I look at some of these artists that came out in 2010s, like Sam Smith, Lorde, One Republic, Bruno Mars, Ed Sheeran, a lot of their songs, Adele, The Weeknd. All these artists in 2010s blew up. A lot of their songs sound similar.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them, especially back when Migos was really big and Bad and Bougie came out. I feel like that was sort of a pivot point for a lot of rap, especially where a lot of it started sounding like knockoff Migos for a long time. And as a DJ, I hated it because it wasn't really super dancey. You really couldn't do much with it as a DJ.
Like walk it like I talk it, walk it like I talk it, walk it like I talk it.
Yeah, like it was all stuff that's always like fun for a second, and then you're kind of like, okay, I'm over this song. And so as a DJ, I hated it. But at the same time, as a DJ, you have to say, is this what's it's not about what I like, it's about what the world likes. So you could see definitely their impact and how big songs like Bad and Bougie were, which, by the way, it feels so weird that song seems so old, but so not old all at the same time. But anyways, it changed hip hop in a lot of ways. Like I said, people started emulating it and copying it, and or at least maybe not that one in particular, but it seemed like that song was the pivot point where everything after that started sounding the same for a long time.
Mumble rap came out.
Mumble rap.
But like Black and Yellow by Wiz Khalifa, Pittsburgh in the House. That was a huge hit also, and there were songs that sound like that for a while. There are a lot of songs. There are all these Little Baby, Little this, Little whatever. I don't know who they are, but they all got big in the 2010s, and a lot of stuff to me sounds the same. I mean, I don't know who they are, but they sound the same. So I think there's some deliberateness in there. I just think there is. They get played. Imagine Dragons had like 5 songs that all sound like to me. I liked them.
Yep.
They all sound like.
And they all sound like One Republic.
Exactly. Thank you. But exactly. So I mean, that's the point. Maroon 5 came out. They all their songs sound similar to me too. They're big in the 2010s. I like them. They're saying I don't like them. I like them. But they sound pretty similar.
Maroon 5 is one of those bands that's like sneaky, been around for a long time and made a lot of songs.
They have.
Because when you go back and listen, like if you go back and listen to some of their original stuff that came out, you're like, geez, this song was old. Like, when did they come? They had to come out like early 2000s. They have to be 15 years now of making music. But, Adam Levine and Friends or whatever.
Exactly.
Go
ahead.
No, but yeah, like, because they had, even just in the 2010s, they came up. I know they had like Girls Like You. They had Moves Like Jagger. They had a lot of big ones. Moves Like Jagger was huge for them.
It was huge. But I look at people like The Weeknd, who I remember his first album, and I liked it. It was very different and moody. Then, of course, he came out and just, You Earned It, and all these songs were really big. And, of course, hanging out with Daft Punk, Starboy and all that. I mean, he blew up. Like, I really watched him over the decade get bigger and bigger. And he was an unlikely person I thought would be huge. I thought he'll be underground. He'll have a few hits here and there. He was really big. I mean, he still is. He's going into 2020. He's really big. It
seems like he's getting bigger. It seems like every time he comes out, he's one of those artists that it seems like every time he comes out with a new album, it's his best album. Like, at least for me personally, I think Blinding Lights is or I don't know the name of this album, but the one with Blinding Lights on it, the one that's out now, is my favorite stuff from him. I think he's killing it. And every time he comes out, Starboy, when it came out, it felt like his biggest album at the time. He's just really, I think, because when I see him, I don't know him personally, obviously. I don't, know who this guy is, but I think he is that guy that like loves music. I think there are some people who want to become rich and famous and they have the talent, so it works. I think he's one of those guys that if his career didn't work out, he would still just be making music for fun in his basement or whatever, I don't know why it has to be in the basement. Why can't it be in a penthouse? Because he has a great job doing something else and then makes music on the weekend. But but I think he's one of those guys that if he was to not be successful in the industry, he'd still make music just because it's fun for him.
I think that 3 artists we can't even not mention for the decade would be Drake.
Yes.
Ariana Grande.
Yes.
Of course. Those two. And my third one, which I just want to blame my third, well, Adele is another huge one too, of course.
Where Taylor Swift, probably, and Rihanna.
That's what I meant, and Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Those are my four I actually want to mention. Those four, of course, especially, actually, all four of them do almost concept albums. They've been putting out albums. Each album's a part of their lives. Adele especially, with 18, 21, 20, she like does that. Taylor Swift, obviously, is from the very beginning, put out albums and went from, we talked about it on a previous episode, but she was big. Ariana Grande, same thing out the gate. Every album's a huge hit. It's the events. It's about her life at the time. You know, and I would even throw in some Demi Lovato a little bit. I love her, and she's another person who's kind of emerged from that whole pack. She kind of and has some powerful songs. But those four, and Drake, like I said, puts out albums. Him and Beyonce changed the game when they each put out an album. That changed everything. They were the first to do that, and I mean, and that's an album of like 5 songs or 9 songs, like 17, 20 some songs.
Yeah,
all these albums.
Legit albums that had a lot of not just like you said, a lot of songs, but also a lot of good songs. It wasn't like one hit and then a bunch of filler trash that they used, you know. It wasn't like one hit and then the stuff we didn't use on the other CDs. It was see, I'm showing my age. I said the other CDs instead of
CDs. So you showed your age. So some CDs.
But yeah, and Ariana, by the way, another one of those artists. Every time she comes out with an album, it seems like it's her biggest album. Is it similar to The Weeknd, where every single like this one feels like her biggest album, but the one right before it also felt like her biggest album.
Right.
Taylor Swift, again, Blank Space, I think was probably one of the songs of the decade, I would say, looking back over it. One song I want to get in just as a DJ, because I like to throw it in because it was a banger as a DJ, but I feel like it won't come up naturally, so I'm just going to shove it in here. Iconopop, I love it.
That song is very iconic.
I love that song crushes whenever you play it. It's always such a good dance floor banger. So I have to like shoehorn that one in there.
Well, I mean that's a good one. But there's also, like you mentioned Fancy by Iggy Azalea, which was a huge hit for a minute. You know, a problem with Ariana Grande and her. It was a big hit at one point. There were a lot of those kind of songs that we know what they are. They're probably one hit one. I kind of posted a couple of hits, I guess, but like that song was huge. It was used in commercials, was used in all kinds of stuff. And now it's 2010s. I mean, it just happens that's you brought that on, kids.
Iggy Azalea, yeah, that was so. She was huge. She was huge, and then just disappeared.
Yep.
Now, just like how did you pronounce his name? Gautier, somebody I used to know. That was another big one.
Yes, Gautier. Yes, that song was huge.
Now he's just somebody we used to know. Just came in and dropped this.
I love that song. There's actually a remix version of that song. It's really good. A dance version is really good.
What happened? Because that song was massive. Also
huge. It was huge.
And I don't even think he didn't. As far as I know, he didn't even come out with like a second song that wasn't good either. It was like he did that and then he just left, like just disappeared. I don't know.
Bye. Made my money on now. Thank you.
Because it was on like heavy rotation for like 3 years on radio station. And now if you played it again, people would say like, oh yeah, this song.
It was a big song. We can't not mention Meghan Trainor.
Yeah, all about that bass.
I love the bass, but she had a bunch of songs that are really good. And her and Charlie Puth, another one.
Yeah.
Surprisingly survived the decade too. Like he had a lot of hits. I'm like, and they were all good songs. It's Marvin Gaye's song. He has some really good songs. Charlie
Puth is underrated great. He has a ton of great songs, like Attention and How Long Has It Been Going On? And like a lot of great like grooves that
I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah. I mean, very under the radar, underappreciated, good songs. He's almost like a good version of Train. I'm not a fan of Train, but they're always my example of like they have a sneaky number of songs that you hear on the radio all the time.
Yes.
But I'm not a huge fan of them. But like that's him, where like I think if we were to say name artists you hear on the radio all the time, no one would say Charlie Puth. But he has a ton of songs you hear all the time on the radio.
I agree. I'm going to throw in my couple of little faves. I want to throw in myself. AWOL Nation, I love them. Sail, my song.
Oh yeah,
that whole album is the bomb.
Sail.
First of all,
Da, 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 da.
my daughter turned me on to them back in the day, and I love that whole first album. Even the second album's okay too, but that first album, Sail, is my song. I should mention that. Kendrick Lamar, I was a huge. When I heard Swimming Pools Drunk, I was like, what song? I loved it. I just thought he's another one who was really big. I liked him. I want to get
Humble, also the great one.
Oh, yes. Yes. No, that's a good one. Yes, another good one.
Yeah.
Yes. But I want to mention him, and I have to mention, because she survived the 2000s and she still kept going. Pink, my girl Pink, still put out hit songs. She didn't have her first #1 hit until 2010s. Just give me the reason. That song is the ball. Yeah, she never had #1 hit.
Really?
Until then.
Yeah, she keeps on trucking. She's another one of those people that you kind of forget about, just being there, but always putting out music. You know what I don't like about her, though? I've got a bone to pick with Pink. I don't like that she uses an exclamation point for her I in her name, because whenever I'm searching her music, when I have to play music, I never know, do I put an exclamation point or do I just spell it as an I? Kesha, another 2010, does the same thing with the $, and I'm not a fan of it. Just spell your name normal. That's
I don't want normality in my rock stars. I love it. I think good for you. Make Jack work for it. Make him try to find your song. Make him work for it.
I always have to type the name in twice, because whatever it is, I always do it wrong. I can never remember if I can never remember, did I adjust it in my music or anyways.
That's hilarious. Also want to mention John Legend. Someone quietly throughout the whole decade, All of Me was a huge, of course, Weddings. I'm sure that was like the one of the #1 songs, but he had a lot of hits for years. He still continued to put out hits. He also was in Jesus Christ Superstar, did really great now on TV. Like, he's somebody who's just like, celebrity wise, he's still last. And I met him at Chrissy Teigen once, actually. I actually bumped into him on La Cienega, and I said, I'm sorry. And he was like this tall and like this big. And I was like, I'm so sorry. He was very nice. But there are people who've been around for a long time too, great voice.
John Legend, he's one of those guys that every time he comes out with a song, you're like, it's just like, before you hear it, you're like, oh, this is a good song, because it's John Legend. When All of Me was really big, one of my favorite things I ever got to do is I was DJing a wedding, and the couple had All of Me as their first dance song, and so we go out, it was beautiful, it was great. Everyone's dancing. At the end of the night, we close out, and everyone's like, one more song. And so for an encore, I played the All of Me remix. Dance version. So we kind of bookended the night, and the whole place went nuts for it, because it was like, their first dance song, but also like a banger to close the night out with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
It was one of those things, I don't know how many people got it, but as a DJ, I was like, that was very clever, Jack. Very well done.
No, Jack, I'm with you on that one. As a former DJ, I approve that message.
As a DJ, it's always frustrating when you do something clever and people don't notice, and you're like, no, that was good. That was a good move.
You understand. That was genius. Pure genius.
But you always think maybe, Call Me Maybe. Yes. I don't know, I'm trying to transition from that. Maybe it'll work. Call Me Maybe. Call Me Maybe was another big one from the early 2010s.
2010s. That was Cardi B, Jepsen. And she had a few hits after that, actually, but that, of course, is her signature hit. But I want to go back to Adele, because Adele's another one of those who puts out an album. It's gigantic. I remember when Hello came out from her 25, I think it was her 25, because she already had the You Chasing Pavement, all that song was huge. When Hello came out, oh my God, that song was everywhere. It was everywhere. And then, then she had all those hits. That album, she had just a ton of hits on that album. She did Skyfall. She did Skyfall, which I love. I also won an Oscar for that. But she's somebody who comes out, writes her own music, and now she's lost all this weight. I'm curious to see what happens now with her next album, how that's going to look, because she's like this thinner, more confident person, she said. So I'm really curious to see what happens.
It's going to be all dance songs now.
I would the shirt girl, why not?
Now that she's lost weight, she's like, let's get out and dance. Let's party.
It's sad all the time. But she's somebody who came out with like these power ballad songs that were huge. They were huge.
Well, she had such an amazing voice, and a powerful voice, and an authentic, believable voice as well. I think that's why so many of her songs lasted and did so well. And I think that's why whenever she sang about her life, you always believed it. But yeah, she had another, like Rolling in the Deep was a huge one. Chasing Pavements, yeah, that was a really good one too. Hello, yeah, she had a bunch of bangers.
She had a bunch.
Someone Like You is the other one that was really big.
I love that song. Oh my god, I love that song. Someone Like You.
She damaged her throat though, didn't she? I heard she had
some throat stuff happen. She had to stop singing for a while, but she's back. She's good. She's recording, I believe.
Yeah, that's hopefully it's better. How unfortunate to have a voice like that. But I wonder if that's what damaged it. She was just crushing it. That's
what it is. That's what it is. So if you understand that your voice really is an instrument, I know this from talking a lot, and also that I have to. There were times when I know I did too much talking, and I remember a couple of times. I know really but I remember a couple of times at the end of the night, my voice would get hoarse. I've had laryngitis several times in my life. It's not fun. You literally lose your voice. But it's so they tell you you gotta really take care of your vocal cords, your throat, your box, all that. So you got to take care of all that. It's really it's hard work. It's an instrument.
Yeah, I was DJing an event once and I hurt my throat, like my vocal box. I don't know exactly what it was, like halfway through the event, and you have to start, like, you're almost on like a word limit where you realize I can only say so many words the rest of the night into this microphone because it's going to go away soon. And that was kind of a tense night. I got through it. No one noticed. It was fine, but it's definitely one of those, like, okay, make an announcement, muster it up, get ready to say it so no one can tell you're like, ladies and gentlemen.
I know, it's crazy. They bring up Amy Winehouse, of course. Tragically, we lost her very soon. She's a person who had great promise. My favorite song of hers actually is Back in Black. I mean, I like Rehab and all that, but Back in Black, I actually love that her version of her song. Really good. She's somebody. Miley Cyrus. And the old Hannah Montana image. She shed it. And
both of them. Amy Winehouse, real quick. I love Back in Black. I love a lot of her songs. Mark Ronson did a version of her song Valerie that is really fun and dancey and upbeat that I always really like. She's another one I think, you hate to say it because, the whole tortured artist thing. I think that's what made Amy Winehouse so great is she, again, a very believable, very real person singing. And plus, obviously having a good voice as well, that, helped out. But she was great. But Miley Cyrus will not be denied. I feel like the world wants her to fail, and she just keeps coming back. I came in like a wrecking ball.
She did. But I have to laugh. Her followers all, let me show you how it's done. Sure, Lil Nas X, I'll support you and go on your song Old Town Road and make a shit ton of money. I mean, he was like, sorry, girl, I'm back. And mind you, there's also Noah Cyrus, who's had some hits also. She does some singing, her sister. And Trace Cyrus. He's in a band called Metro Station. They had some dance pop hits also. So the whole Cyrus family does stuff. But Billy Ray came back and was like, no, I want a number one song for like, 20 weeks, 30 weeks. I'm like, I'm going to go everywhere.
And he only dropped it. He wasn't even that much in the song. It was just enough.
It was good.
He was great. Yeah, he was great. His part's my favorite part in that song.
I do. It's like, he raps. He basically raps.
Yeah, living like a rock star, spend a lot of money on my brand new guitar.
I love it. I was like, he came on, but I had to laugh because it was kind of like he was like, bye. Let me go back to my achy breaky heart days where I was a huge hit. And we tell you how it's done. So I kind of laughed, but Miley, Miley completely was just like, I'm gonna come on here and I'm gonna do whatever the F I want. And also diversify her music. Her albums are not all the same. So I mean, she really has proven herself to me as an artist that's around.
Yeah, We Won't Stop, or We Can't Stop. I can't remember if it's We Won't or We Can't Stop. Is probably my favorite song of hers from the past 10 years.
Yeah. Just good stuff. She has some good stuff, but she was somebody in there. And once just Sam Smith, speaking of an international fame, and he putting out songs. He also did Writings on the Wall for I forgot which James Bond film. He also did a theme for that too. He's another.
It must have been one of the newer ones.
It's one of the newer ones. It's not Casino Royale, but I forgot which one it is.
Yeah.
But he did. So he came out as the blue-eyed. He carried on the blue-eyed soul tradition, but also was openly gay, or no, he's openly non-binary now, or whatever. He's like he was being that charge. But he was coming out, and black folks love. My mother loves him. Like black folks love him. White folks love him. Like he came out with all these songs that were, again, almost like a male Adele. These huge hits that had some kind of stuff to him. So I had to mention him because he's just somebody.
Yeah, Latch was huge. Him and Disclosure.
Disclosure, I love that song. Yes.
Yeah, Disclosure. That was a big one. That was another one of those songs that was like around for like 3 years, getting played all the time. Like Major Laser's Something to Lean On. But I liked Sam Smith.
Yeah, I love that song.
Yes. I was going to say, but before moving from Sam Smith, though, I got to say Dance with a Stranger is my favorite from him. I
like the song, too. I love that. I love the video and everything. Yes, I like the song. Dance with Normani.
Yeah, I like those songs that are that, like, they're that border between dancey and just, like, kind of grooving, you know? Like,
I agree.
Like, I like that, and that's where Dancing with a Stranger is, you know? Like, you wouldn't rage to it, but you're like, you kind of groove to it. Like, I imagine, we back in the days when we could go to bars, go out and see people.
I remember that. Well, like, we're not in Florida.
That would be, that Dance with a Stranger, one of those songs where you can imagine you're at the bar, you have your drink, and it comes on, you kind of start, you're kind of bobbing your head, and then you see that person that's also bobbing the head, and you're like, okay, and like, it's a great song. Yes. I love it.
Yes, Sam is not George Michael. I do miss may he rest in peace. But he carried on the tradition, and he does get played on black radio. Like Adele gets played on black radio. Their songs really just fit in, and they have these beautiful, soulful voices that actually work. And for me, like I said, and two of the biggest breakouts of the 2010s, of course, were Lorde and Billie Eilish. About dark music that's just sonically different than. I mean, I love Lorde and I love Billie Eilish. I mean, when they both came out, I was just like, oh my God. I know they're like 17 years old. They're like 17 years old when they came out, but I don't care. I was like, they wrote and sang like they were way older. I mean, I didn't understand this. And Lorde with Royals, that song is such a different kind of song. It doesn't sound like anything else of the time period.
You know what made me feel so old the other day is there's that new song Driver's License by Olivia. I can't remember her last name, but I heard an interview with her because everyone loved, I guess everyone loved it and she won an award. I don't follow awards, but I think she won an award. And she said that her hero, Lorde, liked the song. And I was like, wait. How old are you? Lorde was your hero. You were young enough that Lorde was your hero growing up? Because like Lorde.
Billie Eilish is the first person to have a number one hit who was born in the 2000s.
That's
how old you are, Jack.
I'm so old. But yeah, it's Lorde was great. Yeah, she had a couple hits. She had like Tennis Courts.
She also had the Hunger Games version of Everybody Wants to Rule the World, which is my favorite versions of the song. It's so, if you don't know the song, go to the Hunger Games soundtrack. I want to say it's the second one, and I love that version of the song.
Did Lorde just decide to retire? I wonder what happened to her.
Put out a second album and then stopped. Don't know what's going on.
Huh. But yeah, Billie Eilish feels like she's definitely. I'm sure Billie Eilish wouldn't want to be known as just like carrying on what Lorde did. She'd probably want to be her own thing, but definitely similar vibe. Definitely similar feel to what she's doing.
Music's very different. Her and her brother Phineas, they put out some stuff, and she also did No Time to Die.
No Time. Yes,
I love that version. I love that version of the song.
That might be my favorite song of hers, the James Bond one, as far as just like a well put together song is the and just like it's a good sound. I mean, I understand why it's not her biggest hit per se, but to me, I think that's her best song. If that makes any sense.
I agree. That Bad Guy, which I just love. I love the deep bass grooving Bad Guy. It's so interesting.
It's fun.
And her vocal, very breathy kind of thing. And then I also, of course, love the song that's I mean, I like Ocean Eyes a lot too, but there's a song that she came out first. I can't remember right now, but she was another one who just blew me. I was like, my granddaughter turned me on to her. That's how old I am. And I was like, who's this Billie Eilish chick? And then my friends whose daughters who are teenagers were going, yeah, she's this artist who's blah blah. And her brother writes. They write their songs together, and I started seeing them going, wow, get past the look stuff, which was very much Lady Gaga. Same thing. Get past the look stuff, and go into the artistry. I was like, wow. And Lady Gaga is another one who, I mean, she's a bona fide Oscar-winning star. I mean, she completed a decade. Started out with Let's Dance. That was her first song. I mean, that was like this little.
I thought she was a joke when she first came out. I was like, this lady's a joke. I saw her as as on a TV show, and I was like, look at this, like dressing all silly. Who does she think she is? And then she became a massive star. But
I've always said she is the Elton John of our day. I feel like the outward, because back in the 70s and 80s, Elton John did all the outrageous stuff, but he was writing and playing piano and doing all this stuff. And Elton John was the biggest selling artist in the 70s. I mean, he had number one album after number one album, sometimes in the same year. But he looked crazy. And so my mom was always like, James, you gotta look past the artifice of all the like Nicki Minaj too was very cartoonish when she came out. It was all this cartoonish. She goes, you gotta look past that and actually look at and listen to the music. Lady Gaga, good. I mean,
she's great. She has a like a lot of her songs, like too, like I like a lot of her non-dance songs. Like I like Million Reasons is a great song. She had that country song, that kind of a country song come out that I thought was just fun. She also has one where she says she'll never speak again. What was the name of it? That song?
But as you find that, I just want to mention, she did an album of standards.
Speechless. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's a good one. You were speechless, Jack, a second ago.
I was speechless. I didn't know.
Like, but she had an album of standards with Tony Bennett that went number one on the charts, and it's good.
It's great. I love it. As a DJ, I like it too because I can play standards at like events.
Yes.
But I'm playing stuff both grandma and the kids like.
Yes, you are. No,
like, by the way, when you start referring to them as the kids, you are no longer a kid.
Oh yes, Michael B. Check out Billie Eilish. She's actually she's good. I think you might like her.
But yeah, I think it all worked out for Lady Gaga, so I would never question her approach to music. But I almost think that she painted herself into a little bit of a corner with the way she presented herself as dressing crazy and being this kind of character, because it made everyone think that that's what she was when she's really just a straight up talented artist, like who can sing, who can write, who can do all sorts of stuff. And so, yeah, she's fantastic.
Well, now, of course, she's Oscar nominated for A Star Is Born and won an Oscar for the song. So she's proven herself in that arena. She can strip it all down and put out just regular songs. And I just think, and then she came back and did art pop. She came back and did a dance album again. I was like, oh, she's back again. She came back and was huge again. So because a lot of folks were starting to write her off, as they do, write you off a little bit. Oh, you're all tired. So I said, don't write anybody off. You never know. I mean, people have albums that aren't huge hits. Sometimes they're not huge. They tried things artistically, it doesn't work out, but it just turns around. So, okay, I'm sorry, I like Elton, but he hit it big in Black People Classic, Benny and Jets. I don't know. He hit it big with a lot of songs. I don't know why you're saying I'm sorry. I'm saying, yeah, he was Elton John's huge. But people, black folks like Lady Gaga too. They like her also. They said this stuff with too. But I just think Lady Gaga and Elton are very much still in the vein of outrageous look, performance, but actually they're songwriters, pianists, they're artists. And that's my comparison with that.
Who we haven't talked about that was really big and had a big transformation is the Jonas Brothers. And they came back. And what's funny is their comeback was so big. I don't really even remember what they were before they broke up and came back as individuals and then came back together as a group. I remember they were huge. They were a big superstar Disney group. Yes, and then they broke up and then they all came out with their own stuff that was huge. And then they got back together and it's huge. And I don't remember what they were doing that was so big with Disney anymore. Like
they had a TV show. They had a TV show, which also led to albums. They're part of the Disney chain. They're part of the whole Disney chain.
But I don't remember their songs, I guess. Like I remember.
I was too old for that, so I don't know either personally. But they were big.
No, I remember they were big, but like I look back at like other, like Justin Bieber. We remember his like, baby.
He wasn't Disney. So remember, Justin Bieber came from YouTube. He's one of the first YouTube discoveries that Usher. So folks will remember this. Usher found him, and then ushered him in.
He's another guy I thought would never make it. I saw this little kid, Justin Bieber. I was like, what a dork. He'll never make it.
No, but he had Usher behind him, and then he had that cute, adorable haircut. Remember that haircut was big for a while. And they were like, is he Ellen DeGeneres? That kind of haircut and everything. And the little mop top thing. And it was kind of cute. He came out, it was cute. And the songs were actually very catchy. He had a song, Baby wasn't a song I liked. He had a song that came out after that, which I'm blanking out right now.
Beauty and the Beat?
Was really good. I love that song too, with Nicki Minaj. I love that one also. But there's a song with Usher, which I'm looking at right now, that I like that song too.
Yeah, what was that one?
He had some songs that were hits that were really good. I'm blanking out. If you guys know what the song is, folks, tell me. It's a song it's a song around that same time period that I really liked that song. But you didn't be with Justin. I was like Nicki Minaj. I love that song. Turn it off. I used to love that song. So no, I liked him when he came out. I thought he was good. Like you had thought, flash in the pan, he'll be done soon. But you go towards the end of the decade, he came out with some great songs that were very adult and grown up, and you're like, what?
Yeah, and he still is. I was gonna say Sorry. Was I think one
great.
that
Love that song. That song was everywhere. Everywhere.
He had because he was smart. He did like an album that was all like DJs, and then him being the voice on them. I guess the hook person on all of their songs. Because they had Cold Water and other songs that were really big for a while. But I think that helped him break away from the old Justin, so to speak.
Yeah, and Tony is right. Record labels, they try to.
Yeah, it's.
That's right, good. I'm sorry, you froze. Come back. Oh my God, Jack Farmer froze, or I froze. To him, maybe I froze to him, but for me, he froze to me. Why is he freezing? Come back to me. I don't know which one was frozen. If it's him or me. We'll see for a second. This is live. This is live. Let's see what happens. Yeah, the interesting look on his face. Dang it. We were just getting this conversation. I want to hear what he said. Oh, it looks like he's frozen. Okay. I'm looking at the thing. It looks like he's the one who's frozen. Oh, you see and hear me. Okay. We're not mentioning R. Kelly in here. yeah. No mentions of R. Kelly. No mentions of R. Kelly in here. We can't mention it right now. But yes, they are. It's very true. A lot of folks, the record labels will go, let's market you this way. Remember, Pink came out. She was R&B. Remember, she was all marketed. She was on the Face Records. She was all R&B. She was a badass white chick. Blah blah blah. With pink hair and all this stuff. Then she was like, screw that noise. And then she went to do music she wanted to do, and obviously she's been successful ever since. So I think so you're right. Sometimes it is about the label going, we're going to market you this way to this person, and it may work at first, but then after a while you realize that's not really them. It's just kind of like, and they do their own thing. Or you have people like Rihanna, who comes out and puts out albums every year, which is also a rarity. A lot of companies don't want you putting out albums every year. They want you to put out an album every couple of years. You do 3 or 4 singles, you go on tour, and you do that whole thing. But Rihanna was like, I'm putting out albums every year, and she was a hit every year. She had 1 million hits off her albums. Like the G. He went on, I don't know where he is. He's supposed to come back. I hope he can come back on. I don't know what's going on. It's like just James Live Jr. is the farmer and the DJ. What's going on here? I'll keep it going until he gets back on. Because I have to keep going. Let's see. Is he come back on? The 2000. Oh, that was him. The 2000s had. Drake. Speaking of Drake being a huge artist, he was the only artist I knew whose music was on. I mean, most rap, I didn't know what the music was in the 2000s. I mean, I knew some Migos and stuff. I knew some of, honestly, oh, here he comes. Here he comes. Come back in. He froze. Oh my God, he froze. This is all technology. It's technology.
There. Are we back?
You're back. You're back. It's like it's technology. And Jack froze. He froze. So I was like, it's technology, folks. It's a fine Wi-Fi provided by whoever his provider is. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to give them a phone call. And shake my fist.
Give a piece of your mind.
By the way, there's nothing you never feel less powerful than arguing with your internet provider, because you're just like, I'm going to leave. And they're like, okay.
Like, bye.
Bye.
Good luck trying to get online. Sure.
Right. And then you look up and they're the only provider you're allowed to have in your area.
Exactly.
And they're like, crawling back, huh?
Like, hello, Mr. Farmer. How can we help you? Mm-hmm. What you can do with that, Farmer. I want to mention a big song that we have not even talked. There's some people who have big hits. Blurred Lines. That was
massive.
That was a massive. Robin Thicke and Pharrell. That was a huge hit that we don't even talk about. Trap Queen by Fetty Wap. I never knew what a Fetty Wap was until I heard the song, and the song was everywhere. I was like, what's a Fetty Wap? I still know what a Fetty Wap is, but I remember the song on some level.
Well, Trap Queen was a song. Fetty Wap was the guy.
Okay, see, I don't even know what that is. That's how old I am. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, whatever.
Trap Queen was huge, and then there was another one. He had another song that was really big, and I can't remember the name of. But Fetty Wap was massive.
It was huge. But then, of course, Bruno Mars. You can't even deny he had so many hits, and I'm sure you play at weddings also.
Yeah.
I Want to Marry You. That song, all those songs. A bunch of songs you play. Dance wise,
Treasure,
yes.
Uptown Funk, 24 Karat Magic. That's What I Like. He's got so many bangers. He just came out with a new song too. I don't know if it's a prequel to an album. I hope it's an album coming out, but
I don't know. Okay, I will not go into the Prince bashing. Michael B brought up something about Prince, and I will not. I'm a huge Prince fan, so this is where I won't say anything because I have a whole different take on that. I would have to do a song. I'd do a show on Prince separately about my feelings about Prince. Like, I just say he brought something up. I'm like, I have a whole different take on that, but that's another.
Prince
show.
is a legend. I don't want to hear any Prince bashing.
Thank you. He's a legend. I mean, that's a whole other thing. So that's a whole other thing. Floyd Boys 679 was that the song?
679. Yes, that's it. Yeah. Damn, she fine. Wonder when she'll be. I don't know the words because he kind of sounds. He mumbles them a little bit, but
now they bring up a point with Bruno Mars and when he says Queen Bee, that's Beyonce, of course. Bruno Mars gets in trouble recently for, say, cultural appropriation when he's a person of color, which I don't understand what that means. I know people are trying to bring him down, but he's R&B, and it's like, and he's answered back to the critics and stuff. He's a person of color. He's like Filipino and Puerto Rican, like these mixtures and stuff. And he grew up doing R&B stuff. And his music, very much to me, is very authentic. He's a person of color, so I don't know why the problem there. I don't get the problem. I just, as a person of color, I don't get it. And most Black folks I know love his music, so I don't know why he's getting backlash. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm not the person to speak on it, but I feel like when you're doing that well and you're that talented, I mean, I don't really know so only certain people are allowed to make certain kinds of music. I mean, it's not like he's not doing it in a way that's like silly or anything. It's great music. It's one thing if, like, let's say take Eminem, for example, if he's walking out wearing like all Adidas jumpsuits and like big gold chains or whatever, and trying to like almost be a mocking of what a rapper looks like, then yeah, that's when you go, okay, that's not good. But like when you're just making great music like Bruno Mars is, I know I jumped from Eminem to Bruno Mars.
But that's a good point, because I'll go back even further. Beastie Boys, why they succeeded is because they didn't try to be Run DMC. They didn't try to be the other Black rappers. there were these 3 boys from Brooklyn who were white and Jewish, and they still told story, and they were also supported by Run DMC and all them and all them, but they came out as their own kind of Fight for Right to Party is their own thing. It wasn't like they weren't trying to copy anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why they succeeded. Like you said, they succeeded, and Black folks supported them, and they had a huge, long career, obviously.
Right.
And Eminem, the same thing. Eminem had Dr. Dre behind him, you know,
right.
And so it was very much Eminem rapped about what he knew. I think that's what helps. He didn't try to be hard, like you said. He didn't try to do backwards caps and hard and gold. He didn't try to do all this stuff. It was like, I'm gonna rap what I know from Detroit, the Detroit that I know of.
Right, and maybe it's just my perception on it, but like again, when you're really talented and making great music, I think that also is different. Like if you're making garbage, then that's one thing, but like it's great. Like he's doing great work. So how can you complain? I think some people just like to find things to be outraged about in this day and age.
Well, you know, it's also this thing of you can't cross over. I mean, Taylor Swift got lots of blowback at first when she started doing, we're never, ever, 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 ever getting back together. I love that song, first of all. It made me laugh. I love the title. Mm-hmm. I think very clever title. But that was on a country album. And they're like, wait a minute, bitch. What are you doing? Trying to do pop all of a sudden. And she literally started to kind of start going that direction. But she got blowback at first, too, for doing it. I go, well, now she's going pop. And blah, blah. And, you know, it's like, okay, well, why can't she? There's artists that do different. I remember Jewel. Speaking of somebody from the 90s. Let's go back to the 90s for a second. I love Jewel, first of all. She was a folk artist, but she put out a dance album.
Quintessential 90s, by the way.
It's very 90s. Very quintessential 90s. But she put out a dance album, which I love. Her song Stand was a big hit. Her song Intuition, which was used for a stick commercial for Lady Savers. She got so much, it went to number 2 or whatever. She got so much flack for that album. Like you tell people, the album still was the same kind of music she would do folk-wise. She added drum beats to it. Mm-hmm. That's all she really did. And like literally, she's talking about America. I said, listen to the lyrics. The lyrics are still there. I tell people, check out that album. Run to You, 3 + 2 = 9. They're all great songs about the condition we were in at the time. She had a dance beat. She was a little more glamorous. She tried something different. Seal put out an album once that was all dance music too. He went to Madonna's producer and said, maybe a dance album. He has a silky smooth voice. Why not? It didn't. It wasn't a hit because they wanted to hear him do Kiss from a Rose and all those kind of songs. But he just did basically the same music, just added some dance beats to it.
I've always said you'll notice the people that come down on someone for trying something new are very rarely people who create things themselves.
Exactly.
If you create something, because if you create something yourself, you get it. You know that it's, one, experimenting is great, and 2, not everything's going to hit. Not everything's going to be great. Like that's just the nature of it. And especially when you're at that level, if you're at like Seal's level, for instance, missing means more than if you're, you know, at my level and I'm, you know, if I make a mix and it sucks, okay, whatever. But if you're at his level, it's a big deal. So when you think about the risks and the, like, how much you have to put into it for that, like if you've ever been in those situations, you don't judge people for that. At least I wouldn't.
I just think it's just their chance. It's just they're saying, yes, Jack, they're believing with you. I just say, I agree. I say you should take a chance. I mean, I'm always, like I said, for my music, I'm always thinking every album won't be the same album every time. I want to play with my voice, try different music, get different background singers, whatever it is, because you want to keep it fresh because you're an artist. And part of that as an artist is you're always evolving and changing, hopefully. And you just want to put out music that makes you feel good, that you're interested in, and because literally you're gonna be singing these songs for the rest of your life off and on. I mean, and back then you went on tour 7-8 months, you're gonna be singing that song every night. Make sure it's something you want to sing. But I think some folks just want a chance to try something different. And I think and if it's good, then they said everything hits. Poor Chris Gaines and the whole Garth Brooks thing. But not everything works. But I still give you an A for effort for trying something a little different. That's why I said with Taylor Swift, I was kind of laughing because like she's a great songwriter. I mean, you can't deny that. She's a great songwriter. And her going pop was smart for her.
Yeah, it was very smart for her. It worked out okay. But the Chris Gaines thing was kind of weird though.
It's very weird.
I'm gonna be a total hypocrite and like make fun of someone for trying something new. It was just weird though, because like the different name and like persona and stuff was a little bit like, but we know it's you. What are you doing?
It's weird. It's weird. But yes, I know what you mean. But that's something interesting. But yeah,
I don't hate him because he did it though. I don't like go,
I know. It's just they just try something different. It's fine. But yeah, the 2010s were very interesting. That I can't think of what it collectively yet. Maybe it's just too soon. Maybe it's just too early. Collectively, what the sound is. Like other decades, you can kind of go, oh, that's very 90s. That's right. I can't really tell this decade yet. Maybe we need time to get away from it a little more to know. The 2000s are starting to settle a little bit into something. We're still kind of figuring that out. And with all these, there are millennials, but then there are Gen Z, then there's Zennials with an X, and then Zennials with a Z, and they're all the mini micro eras are happening. You're like, what does all that mean? And Gennials, and I'm like, oh my God, what, my genitals? What's going on? I don't know what's going on. But they're also defining what we're listening to again. They're starting to kind of, Flo was all hypocrite, get him. Not that kind of show, Flobo. We don't do that on the show.
Yeah, Flobo. Everyone get Flobo. How dare you, Flobo?
He's one of the leads on this show. We don't do that to him. But I think it's as we start to pull back a little further away, maybe we'll see something a commonality. Maybe we'll see. So I just can't see it yet.
Yeah, because as you mentioned with previous decades, there are songs that were massive during the time, but then we remember the decade for different songs and for different things. Again, you look back at like the 90s and I think of songs like Teen Spirit, I think of California Love, and songs like that. I actually even think a lot of like Backstreet Boys. But what's funny is a lot of Backstreet Boys was after the 90s were over. So that's not even a real thing. That's just something I'm putting onto it because that's how I remember it. Where when you go back to the 90s, like you said, Jewel was quintessential 90s, but I wouldn't say, oh yeah, the 90s was artists like Jewel, if that makes sense. Like, so it'll be interesting as we get away. In the moment, I may say, I think Rihanna, it would be like the sound of the 2010s because I think she had so many different, like We Found Love. She had Work. She also had like What's My Name and all these other songs. I feel like she's kind of a good middle ground for that. But at the same time, we might come back later and find out that it was actually someone else that people remember.
I was saying when you were Frozen, I was saying that people like Drake and Rihanna, they put out albums every year. So it's a little different too. They had hits every year. I mean, that's not common. Most times it's like you put out an album, working for 2 years, go on tour, have 5 singles, and then you go. But a lot of them put out albums every year, so they were never out of the public eye. They were always in. The songs were all hits. I couldn't tell you which album half these songs were on. They were all just kind of blend together after a while. They were just all good songs. I think that we became a singles market in the 2010s. It was all singles.
That's a good way to put it. Because I was going to say for Drake, I wrote some of the songs down. Nice for What, Hold On, We're Going Home, Hotline Bling, and God's Plan. I couldn't even tell you what order they came out in.
No, but they're huge. They're all huge. Huge.
They were all huge. But as we said on a previous episode, Hotline Bling, I don't know if I played that today, if people would really care to hear Hotline Bling anymore. Yeah, so maybe it'll be one of those things where everyone looks back and say, oh, the 2010s, that was the sound of Chainsmokers or
The Weeknd.
Yeah. Or The Weeknd.
He had a lot of hits. Or Katy Perry or something. They'd be saying it was the girls. It was the girls. It was Katy Perry and Lady Gaga. Who knows what they're going to say? Miley Cyrus and Ariana Grande and Lorde and Bill. Who knows what they're going to say back then? I think we need time away from it. And then we'll start to kind of go back. And mind you, other artists still came through, like a Bruce Springsteen had albums, Madonna had albums. So did
Black Eyed Peas.
Black Eyed Peas had hit songs. Shakira kept hitting it. There are people. J-Lo came back. There are a lot of folks that continued going in the 2010s. who were around before, who had hits also, in the mix of all of these newer artists.
Didn't even mention Ed Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran was huge. We mentioned for a second, but yeah, he was huge.
Oh, yeah.
You got Taylor Swift. He came out from he was from England, but she brought him on a song that made him huge. He had a song with Beyonce that was huge. I mean, he had a bunch. I mean, he's somebody who just this redheaded, guy from Europe all of a sudden was huge. I mean, and there are a lot of artists, and when we do these shows, you guys, I mean, we only do them for certain. We can't do them for like 10 hours. There are a lot of artists. We know they're international artists too. I'll mention my Kylie Minogues, or Marina Diamonds. I mean, there are people who are huge, and also during this time period, we just can't get to everybody at some point. And maybe when we come back, we'll have some of those. We'll do some European ones or whatever dances, because there are a lot of. I mean, a lot. I didn't mention Cascade, which I love. I remember that song. I remember was a big song for me in the 2010s. It's just a lot. But I just want to say, in 2010s, it was very much a singles market. You buy the song, you download the song, you stream the song. Albums. Sheryl Crow says she's not doing albums ever again the rest of her life. She's like, I'm just going to put out singles. So I mean, it's got to that point where artists are noticing that, and there were a lot of singles that have come out that who just put out songs. Which
is both good because I feel like you get a better bang for your buck, but also kind of disappointing because there's something growing up that I loved about putting on an album and listening start to finish. And there's something about a well-constructed album that I think is going to be lost on this generation. But maybe that's just old Jack, remembering the days of opening up the jewel case and looking at all the words and all that good stuff.
Album art was important. Art was important. And that's how we end the show, on album art and CD jewel cases. Yes. I'm James Lott Jr. and he's Jack Farmer. Jack Farmer, tell me where they can find you and all your goodness.
Well, assuming my stream is still good, you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. You can also check me out chatting about pro wrestling with Flobo Boys, who's in the chat every Wednesday and Thursday, as well as the Everything Tournament, which is on Thursdays as well.
And thank you guys for coming on here on Mondays with us. We're taking a little break, a little hiatus. We hope to be back. We love doing the show together. We love talking music. I mean, I talk music all day long. I love music. And I think you can agree. I've learned a lot of things while doing the show. I go, oh, yeah. And also, it's been a great reminiscing and just figuring out, songs I've heard from in a while. And now they're back in my rotation on my Spotify playlist. And you can follow me. We're all James Lott Jr. Soul. That James Lott Jr. on all social media platforms. That's right, even on TikTok. And everybody, so please play music. Expand your horizons. Discover new artists who are not big. Independent artists, support them also. There are some great dance songs, great pop songs, great all kinds of songs out there. Yes, share music, everything. I mean, music is very important, and music is fun. And support your DJs. I would say also support the DJs out there. So